Hey there, this is Rob with Water Time Outfitters. Today I'm going to tie up a steelhead fly. This is going to be a shank style fly. It's going to look something like this here. This pattern is it's a fairly simple pattern, but it's very deadly. Use it on anything from winter steelhead, summer steelhead, spring steelhead. It's been a really good style for me to use that's very versatile throughout the year. What I'm doing is I'm using one of these it's Fish Skulls articulated shanks, and I just trim these to size. When you trim those shanks, you always want to make sure that you smooth out the edges at the end of the shank so that there's no sharp edges left. That if you're using say a braided Dacron or even like Senyo wire to attach your hook onto the shank, that can be a deal breaker right there, especially after you've used that fly for a little bit. That sharp edge can really cut into it. So I'm just fixing on a small lead eye here. That nice thing about the lead eye is what the lead eyes do is they orient the hook position a certain way, and that's really important for a couple reasons. When you first of all, I like to have that hook so that the fly is riding a specific way. So in other words, say with this fly here, the lead eyes are on the bottom, and so that's going to help this fly to ride this way in the water. That means the hook point's riding upwards here. So when that hook point's riding up, I'm getting fewer snags. So when I snag the bottom, it's typically not as I'm less likely to lose the fly, for one. I'm not getting my hook point dulled up and having to sharpen it all the time, for two. And then really probably most importantly is just the idea that when that hook point is riding downward, you're much more likely, when you do hook up on a fish, you're much more likely to hook that fish in the lower gill rakers, and so that can be deadly for steelhead. So any waters you're fishing that are, you've got wild steelhead around, it's especially important to make sure that hook orientation is in the right spot. Okay, so next I'm just going to add a little Arctic fox here on the back of this. So this Arctic fox, I like a little bit of this. If you use a lot of this, it really kind of grabs a lot of water and can make casting a little more difficult. I'm just putting a spot of red here on the back of this. I like that spot of red. I'm also going to use a little bit of this. This is, where is it here? Some Willie's sparkling fly material. Some really good stuff. Has a little flash to it and builds a little body. What I'm going to do with this here is I'm just going to palmer this on the back, and I'm going to build a little bump here that I can utilize to kind of build up this here to flare out some ostrich hurl that I'll be adding on here. Just lay that in. As I wrap those, I'm kicking them towards the back. That flash is a nice component, adds a little sheen, a little shine to your fly. I'm just going to rotate this, and there. Now this is the top of my fly. Lead eyes on the bottom side there. So just need a little bit of ostrich here. I'm gonna select some fairly short fibers, little thicker ostrich hurl here for the back end. And when I set these in there, I'm just making sure that they lay back and extend to the hook. I like that to cover back over to the hook point. I don't really want it much longer than that, so I'm just going to lay these in on top. Need a little bit more than that. Get a nice full look to this. I think that adds a nice little swim at the back of the fly. a little more animation to your fly. And so I think it's important to have a good portion right in here. That helps with that fly overall profile. Yet it's a light material, right? It's ostrich. This herl is fairly light. Doesn't take a lot of, doesn't trap a lot of water when you cast. So it tends to be easier to cast. So now I'm going to do a dubbing loop with some dubbing material here. This is kind of a blend, fairly stiff fibers, a little bit of black, a little bit of red flash in here. I'm going to actually mix in a little bit of blue flash in with this. And we're just going to do a dubbing loop here, and this will be what we'll use for the body of the fly. You know, get that going. I just do this really quick and easy. You know, I don't bother with adding wax to it or any of that. We're just going to get this started here, and then I'll probably pick out a little bit of it. It's on there pretty thick. Just pick out a little bit. Got some of the Arctic fox in there, but that's alright. So then we're just going to wrap this as our body, and as we do that, I kick those stiffer fibers, kind of push them towards the back, like so. It's going to build a nice little solid body section for us, and that body section helps kind of flare out the material that we're going to put in on the front. So there's that. Just lock that in. Okay, trim this off. Make sure I'm cutting the right thing. Alright, so now right in here, do a variety of different things. One of the things that I like to do is just throw in a little bit of deer hair. This little bit left on my patch of deer hair. This is coastal blacktail dyed black. It's fairly thin, and I strip out the extras here at the base, and I'm just going to lay this in like so. Those tips sticking upward, and kind of loose wrap, and then tighten it up as I pull up. And then those fibers are going to just kick up, and that's going to give me a nice flare to the front of my fly. And then I'm going to trim the butt sections off a little bit. I still like to leave those in there, and that gives a little extra stiffness in part of that as well. Then we're going to take a guinea feather here, and with this guinea I'll strip down one side so I can easily palmer that. It adds a little bit of color to it, a little black, a little white combination in here. You could also throw in a red guinea in this one. That would be another good color combination for steelhead. You could also use blue, another good color combo. And then what I'm doing here is I'm wrapping this in front of that deer hair that I just tied in. That kind of cleans everything up, and that gives just a nice clean finish there that I'll be able to add in that final portion of the wings. Clean that up. So you got a good looking bug here, right here. I mean, you could use that all by itself, but I'm going to add a little bit more to it. Select a little longer fibers for this portion of the fly, and these are going to lay back over the body and all the way back over the hook point. So by doing that, I'm really going to add a lot more motion to this fly. I think that's one of the keys when it comes to effective steelhead flies, is that they move in the water. You know, I didn't like that. I want to wrap that back a little farther, so I'm just going to move it back just a smidge here. Get that appropriately positioned. I'm going to add a little bit more to that. I want a little more body there. And sometimes you kind of kick this out and kind of get a little bit on each side. There is a good way to get it balanced, even profile that helps that fly ride in the water properly. And then we just trim that tight. I'm going to add a little bit of flash to this. Just put a little bit, my blue flash in here. Just mix a little of that in. Steelhead love blue. A little blue flash goes a long ways. And I like a little bit of purple. Just a little bit of this angel hair. A couple strands of that. Just lay that in kind of evenly over the top. Soft wrap. Kick the extra back. Finish this baby up. Kind of clean up the head here. Cover up any of that material. And you've got a great pattern that's going to work good. Summer steelhead, winter steelhead, spring steelhead. Good all-around fly here that, you know, you can vary the size depending on the water conditions that you're dealing with. But that's kind of what you're going to end up with. You've got enough in there to kind of flare that body out so those fibers kind of move and swim and look alive, and then a strong red profile that's going to all flatten out, and that's going to really kind of add a good sharp contrast in the water to the white eyes and the black body with a little bit of flash in there. You got yourself a very deadly steelhead fly. Good luck with that, and have fun out there on the water.